Mackenzie Michalski, a 31-year-old American nurse, took a trip to Europe with a friend. Her final stop was Hungary, specifically the city of Budapest. The day before she was supposed to return home, Mackenzie decided to go out at night to enjoy her last day in the country and mysteriously disappeared. A swift investigation began, and it didn't take long for authorities to uncover that something shocking had occurred. Mackenzie Elizabeth Michalski, better known as Kenzie, was 31 years old at the time of the events. She was born on January 18, 1993 in Buffalo, a city with just over 270,000 residents located in New York State, United States. She was the first child of William and Jill Michalski, who also have another child named Nicholas. The family later moved from Buffalo to Fredonia, a village with nearly 10,000 residents located in Chautauqua County, New York. It was in Fredonia that Mackenzie grew up and spent most of her life. According to her family, from a very young age, Mackenzie loved amusement parks, Halloween, and haunted houses. She also loved traveling with her family, often visiting cities like Gettysburg and Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, as well as several locations in Florida. Mackenzie was a big music fan and enjoyed a variety of bands. She attended concerts whenever she had the chance and always tried to get as close to the stage as possible. She attended Fredonia High School, graduating in 2010. Her friends and classmates described her as funny, kind, and deeply empathetic toward others. After graduating from high school, Mackenzie pursued nursing studies at Trocaire College, a private Roman Catholic college in Buffalo. She later attended Damon College, where she specialized in neurosurgery. She also received a highly competitive scholarship for the expansion of advanced nursing education for her nurse training. Mackenzie worked as a registered nurse, head nurse, preceptor nurse, and intensive care nurse in the Neurological Intensive Care Unit and Medical Intensive Care Unit at Buffalo General Medical Center, the same hospital where she was born. Later, Mackenzie moved to Portland, Oregon, where she worked as a neurosurgery nurse at Providence St. Vincent Medical Center. Her co-workers described her as a hard-working individual, full of energy, with a unique sense of humor. In addition to her roles at hospitals in Buffalo and Portland, Mackenzie also dedicated herself to volunteering abroad. She worked with the Hope for Tomorrow Foundation in Haiti and Ghana. With this foundation, she collaborated with like-minded medical professionals, donating her time and expertise to provide medical treatment to people who otherwise couldn't access it due to living in impoverished regions. Mackenzie loved traveling the world. She had visited numerous countries, with her favorites being Hungary, Thailand, and Vietnam. She had also traveled extensively throughout Europe, parts of the Middle East, and Asia. She was fascinated by every new culture she encountered and made the most of every trip. Mackenzie also enjoyed extreme sports, having tried skydiving, rock climbing, skiing, and diving. A few months before the events of this case, Mackenzie ended her 6-year relationship with a man identified as Kenton Riken, according to sources. The relationship reportedly hadn't been going well, so they decided to part ways. Sometime later, Mackenzie planned a vacation, and her friend Gretchen Tower invited her to travel together. Gretchen suggested that the trip would be good for her and proposed they tour Europe. Since Mackenzie loved traveling, she happily accepted and was very excited about the trip. Upon leaving the United States, the first destination for the two friends was the Netherlands, where they spent a few days in Amsterdam. Afterward, they traveled to Belgium and then to Budapest, the capital of Hungary. Mackenzie had visited Budapest on previous occasions, so she was familiar with the city and already knew which places she wanted to revisit. The two friends rented an apartment through Airbnb. Once they had settled in, they explored the city together, visiting several famous landmarks and tourist spots. The friends made the most of their stay in Budapest, spending a total of 3 days together in the city. On November 4, 2024, a Monday, Gretchen left for Italy to visit some friends. Mackenzie decided to stay in Hungary for one more day, as she planned to head to the Netherlands the next day and then return to the United States. According to Gretchen, before she left, Mackenzie walked her to the door of the apartment. They hugged, said their goodbyes, and exchanged, "I love you." After that, Gretchen headed to the airport to catch her flight. Following her departure, Gretchen exchanged a few messages with Mackenzie, but on the following day, November 5th, Mackenzie stopped responding. At first, Gretchen didn't think it was serious. She assumed her friend might just be busy with something else and had forgotten to reply. However, later that afternoon, Gretchen received a notification from Airbnb alerting her that Mackenzie had not checked out. Mackenzie was supposed to leave the apartment at the agreed time, as it was already reserved for other guests, but this didn't happen. Additionally, Mackenzie had a flight scheduled to the Netherlands, but she never showed up at the airport. This left Gretchen extremely worried. According to her, Mackenzie was very responsible and not the type to break commitments. It was completely out of character for her. Gretchen tried contacting Mackenzie multiple times, but all attempts were unsuccessful. She then decided to notify the U.S. Embassy in Hungary, which informed the local authorities. Police were dispatched to the apartment where the two friends had stayed, and with the help of the property owner, they gained access to the unit. Inside, they found all of Mackenzie's belongings, but there was no sign of her. There were also no signs of a struggle or anything to indicate that a crime had occurred there. At this point, Mackenzie Michalski was officially declared missing, and her family in the United States was notified. During the investigation, Hungarian police reviewed the messages Mackenzie had sent to Gretchen before her disappearance to establish a starting point. In one of these messages, Mackenzie had sent a photo of a glass of wine, mentioning that she was at a well-known restaurant in a Jewish neighborhood in Budapest. Using this information, the police reviewed footage from security cameras installed near the restaurant, leading them to their first significant clue. While Hungarian authorities investigated the case to determine what happened to Mackenzie, her family and ex-boyfriend traveled from the United States to Hungary to assist in any way they could. Upon arriving in the country, they spoke with the authorities and collected Mackenzie's belongings to check if anything was missing. Nothing was missing, except for the items Mackenzie had taken with her when she went out on the day she disappeared. This indicated that nothing had been stolen from the apartment the two friends had rented. Mackenzie's family, along with her ex-boyfriend, distributed posters throughout Budapest with her photo and information that could help identify her if anyone saw her. Friends and co-workers also contributed by creating a Facebook group to share updates and spread awareness about her disappearance. A GoFundMe campaign was launched, raising over $40,000 to cover any potential expenses. After reviewing hours of footage from several security cameras near the restaurant Mackenzie visited before her disappearance, police discovered that she had spent most of the night with a man. The footage showed Mackenzie and this man walking together, entering bars and clubs throughout the evening. The police then visited the restaurant, Mackenzie's first stop that night, where she had sent Gretchen the photo of the wine glass. They spoke with the manager and staff, who confirmed Mackenzie had been there that evening but said she arrived alone and left alone. Next, the police visited a nightclub that, according to their investigation, was Mackenzie's second destination that night. Conversations with the nightclub staff and footage from the club's security cameras revealed that, like at the restaurant, Mackenzie arrived alone but left with the same man seen in the earlier footage. After leaving the club together, Mackenzie and the man visited several bars before heading to another nightclub called Simple Kurt. Thanks to security camera footage from the neighborhood, the police were able to retrace all their movements that night. With this information, the police discovered that Mackenzie went with the man to an apartment nearby. Security camera footage showed that hours later the man left the apartment, but Mackenzie did not. On November 7th, the police visited the apartment and found the same man who appeared in the security footage with Mackenzie. This man, a 37-year-old Irish national, was staying in a rented apartment. When questioned about Mackenzie, he immediately confessed that she was dead. This dashed any hope the authorities and her family had of finding Mackenzie alive. The man, whose identity was not disclosed due to Hungarian laws protecting the identities of crime suspects, claimed that Mackenzie's death was an accident. According to him, after entering his apartment, they engaged in intimate relations during which Mackenzie allegedly requested to be tied up and subjected to pain. He stated that during the act, at some point, Mackenzie lost consciousness and suffocated due to oxygen deprivation. The man said he tried to revive her but was unsuccessful. When asked by the police where Mackenzie's body was, the man continued his story. He claimed that after realizing she was no longer alive, he panicked and feared being imprisoned for a crime he didn't intend to commit. He placed her body in a wardrobe and then cleaned the apartment to remove any evidence. After finishing the cleaning, the man put Mackenzie's body in a suitcase and placed it in the trunk of a car he had rented. He then drove nearly 93 miles to a lake called Balaton, where he disposed of the suitcase containing Mackenzie's body. At the apartment where the crime occurred, police found numerous pieces of evidence confirming that Mackenzie had indeed been there. Among these items were her boots, handbag, credit card, keys, and some coins. A forensic team was called to the apartment to collect as much forensic evidence as possible, while the man led the police to the location where he had disposed of Mackenzie's body. Upon arriving at the site, located on the shores of Lake Balaton, the police conducted a brief search based on the Irishman's directions. They quickly located the suitcase containing Mackenzie's body. Another forensic team arrived at the scene, documenting the man's route on the day of the crime and collecting samples of grass and leaves. Mackenzie's body was sent for an autopsy, while the Irishman was taken to prison and formally charged with the crime. Mackenzie's family and friends were devastated upon receiving the news of her death. They had held on to hope that she would be found alive, but tragically, that was not the case. During an analysis of the accused man's computer, the police discovered disturbing searches conducted by him. According to authorities, these searches were made after the crime. The man had searched for, "Do pigs really eat corpses?" and "Texas woman killed by wild boar." He also searched for boar sightings near settlements along Lake Balaton, the area where he had disposed of Mackenzie's body. Other searches included questions like, what does a corpse smell like after decomposing, and how to remove the smell of rotting meat? He also looked up, how reliable is the police in Budapest, and how does the police handle missing persons cases? To authorities, this indicated that the man never intended to report what he had done. He claimed that everything was an accident, but if that were true, he would have contacted the police and explained, instead of focusing solely on disposing of the body. The case gained significant attention in Hungary and across other European countries. On November 9th, friends and family of the victim held a vigil attended by dozens of people. At the vigil, a friend of Mackenzie described her as a very special person and said she prayed that Mackenzie hadn't suffered. Later, Mackenzie's father said he still couldn't believe what had happened and that it all felt like a terrible nightmare. Kenton Riken, Mackenzie's ex-boyfriend, stated that she was perfect and that he wished he could have protected her. At the time of this video's recording, authorities had not disclosed the suspect's identity or the results of Mackenzie's autopsy. However, according to some officers who saw the body and spoke in later interviews, Mackenzie was likely suffocated. Despite the accused repeatedly claiming it was an accident, the victim's family does not believe this at all. To them, the man had full intent to commit the crime. If convicted, the 37-year-old Irishman could face life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after serving 35 years of his sentence, according to Hungarian law. The money raised through the GoFundMe campaign was used by the family to bring Mackenzie back to the United States and to cover the costs of travel and the funeral. On January 18, 2025, a memorial service and celebration of life was held at Asbury Hall in Buffalo. Many people attended the service to pay their final respects to Mackenzie. One of the tributes included a phrase that read, "We love you to infinity and beyond."